Jerry Corsi, author of Partners in Crime. I want to ask you about the current Secretary of State, John Kerry, who you have a fun relationship
Yes.
with, going back a long ways.
Right.
But you know, you've had you're an excellent reporter on these issues, and you've really focused in on certain aspects of the Clinton scandal along the lines that Peter has. And I thought it would be worthwhile to hear your point of view. That needs more. I think more attention needs to be paid to.
And I want to start by also acknowledging the great work that Tom, you've done, Chris, and Judicial Watch entirely, because we wouldn't be nearly as far along in understanding the Clinton scams had it not been for your diligence in very hard and tedious work. FOIA requests, doggedly going after documents, documents produced by Judicial Watch that were not produced by the FBI or produced by the Justice Department. And the American people, I think, should owe a debt of gratitude to Judicial Watch for your diligence. And I think we all here personally thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Jerry.
My focus on the Partners in Crime, and if you take a look at the subtitle, it's the Clinton scheme to monetize the White House for personal profit. Now, that's what I'm focusing on. I mean, about 2 years ago, Charles Ortel, who's a good friend in New York and a brilliant financial analyst, came to me and said, if you've never looked at the audited financial statements or the Form 990s, which a foundation, a 501c3 or 501c4, an IRS form, needs to file every year, Charles said they're fraudulent. They're patently fraudulent. And I mean, first of all, I was shocked because the Clinton Foundation has been in existence since 1997, and you would think someone in the federal government would have recognized this. Of course, now what we know about the IRS is that it's been a partisan IRS and will not apply the same standard of justice to Democrats or those on the political left. So as I began to dig into it, the crime I'm talking about in Partners in Crime is what's called enurement. I want to make that very clear, enurement. Enurement is when you use a foundation, 501c3, 501c4, the IRS allows you through a determination letter, which you have to apply for, to say that if you get this determination letter for this specific purpose, you can get funds raised in a tax-favored way. So the people contributing to you have a tax benefit, and that's because you're going after a charity. You're trying to do something that is the public good, and we will allow you to have a tax benefit for that reason. The IRS is very stingy on giving determination letters to charities, or should be. Now, the point of enurement is when you set up a foundation utilizing this great gift of the tax code of tax deferral or any kind of tax favored treatment, and then you scam the foundation by stealing the money, diverting the money, making yourself rich. Enurement means instead of spending 95 cents on the dollar you get for the charity, you spend 5 cents, and the rest goes to yourself, your associates, your high style of life in five-star hotels, private jets, etc. And what I'm saying in this book, and it's a detailed analysis, more of almost a prosecutorial looking at the evidence, although I'm a political scientist, but really detailedly looking at the financial statements, the audited financial statements, and the Form 990s. It's Al Capone, if you think of the analogy of gangster in Chicago went to jail not for racketeering, but for income tax evasion. And what I'm saying, and my book is really complementary to the excellent work that Peter Schweitzer has done. Because Peter is arguing a case for pay to play, which is that people paid the Clintons in order to get a policy decision, either when Hillary Clinton was in the Senate or as Secretary of State, made in their favor that otherwise would not have been made. The policy decision, in other words, was bought and paid for by the money given to the Clinton Foundation. Now, I'm convinced, having looked at the evidence myself, that Peter's right. I think the difficulty is that it's a vulnerable argument because a Clinton veteran defender like Lanny Davis can come on television and say, Peter doesn't have a scintilla of proof that there was a nexus between the contribution to the foundation and the policy decision reached. Well, Peter doesn't have that proof in large part because the evidence has been destroyed or withheld. The emails destroyed, on which we know Clinton Foundation employees and Teneo and other foundations set up by the Clintons, was complementary in that these foundations were shared the information at the highest levels of the Secretary of State as if they were all one family, even with the information being classified, confidential, etc. And it was shared so the Clinton Foundation could set up events and utilize decisions and opportunities coming down the road that could, in fact, be a pay-for-play scandal. The emails we get are heavily redacted. Key emails are destroyed or withheld and not given, and so Lenny Davis's argument fails only because Peter can't get the evidence needed to prove the case. I'm sure it's there. From what we have seen, it certainly appears abundantly there if we can get the goods. Now, Partners in Crime says we have the evidence. The evidence is the financial statements, the audited financial statements, and it's the 990s, where, for instance, as I point out, Unit Aid, which is a tax structure in Europe that is administered through the United Nations, World Health Organization in Geneva, gives a huge amount of money. It's the biggest program the Clinton Foundation runs, to the Clinton Foundation to get AIDS combated, HIV/AIDS, and largely in Africa and other third world countries. Well, there's no year we could find, when I was doing the research, where what Unit Aid reports they gave to the Clinton Foundation is what the Clinton Foundation reports receiving. Some years it's higher, some years it's lower, but how could this record discrepancy exist? And then the Clintons leave the White House begging that they're desperately poor. Of course, Hillary Clinton has an $8 million book contract from Simon & Schuster. They buy expensive homes in Chappaqua and in Washington. They're obviously not destitute. They're going to have pensions as president. Hillary Clinton is aiming in the Senate, etc. But the Clintons end up with net worths of over $100 million each. And even with the speaking fees, there's no way they could have amassed that kind of wealth on the salaries of Secretary of State or the Senate. The money comes from diverting money out of the Clinton Foundation. And the reporting, Charles Ortel is right. And I also invite you to look at his website, charlesortel.com, which is excellent for those who have accounting backgrounds, where you can see diversion of funds. In other words, the Clinton Foundation says we got a gross number of receipts this year in revenue through our charity operations, and the gross number of what they spent, but there's no detail. It's almost as if the financials were intentionally set up to perpetrate a scam. And if you do a detailed analysis of the financial statements, you can see millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars being diverted. I'm going to end with the point that Bill Clinton has two private corporations, WJC LLC and WJC Investments. They're filed in Delaware. Now, WJC is Bill Clinton's initials, and these were never fully disclosed. They were found out in the process of other investigations. Now, these two are fundamentally function, especially WJC LLC, as a pass-through shell corporation. That's what money launderers set up. It's a red flag for money laundering, drug cartels, terrorists, and the Clinton Foundation doesn't give detail as to what monies go into WJC. And we increasingly find WJC, these organizations, mentioned and noticed in the Panama Papers, which are a set of documents that were released out of Panama showing offshore transactions. And as I proceed in the investigation, what happens is earthquake happens in Haiti. Clintons rush in, opportunity to have hundreds of millions of dollars flow through their hands, and in the process divert the money. In a money laundering operation that appears to involve even now John Podesta, the Russians, and other entities we don't know about fully, with the Clinton Foundation, I would maintain being not only an enurement scam to make the Clintons rich, but it is also an international money laundering scam that is perpetrated with the various criminals that the Clintons do business with. That's how I think my book is complementary to Peter's book, and I think the two together begin to tell the whole story of what the Clinton Foundation is all about.